Hello. So I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to talk a little bit about Juneteenth and then I want to weave in Pride um, in the time that we have. And some of you may have African American friends or people who identify as Black who have talked about the complexity. You may have seen, I've seen some notes on Facebook and um, just the frustration with being told happy Juneteenth and and just sharing with you that it's a bittersweet event. Um, and I'll share this quote and then I'll talk a little bit about the complexity. So while Independence Day is nationally celebrated as the day Americans acquired their freedom, not everyone became free that day. Black Americans remained enslaved for 89 years, and I think that's not the exact right number. I did the math. Yeah, no, it is. 89 years after July 4th, 1776. There is a long history of Juneteenth, including the Juneteenth flag, which I forgot to put up, but maybe I'll share that with you. Those of you who haven't seen it before, if I have it on this computer, no, I don't. That's sad. Including the June 19th flag, but it sums things up. Juneteenth celebrates the emancipation of enslaved Black Americans. The day is meant to remember the hardships that Black Americans faced, honor their achievements, and serve as a reminder that the work is far from over. And I found that on a website called Reader's Digest. Anybody over 50 might remember that little magazine. It was pretty funny, but I like the quote, which is why I brought it. So in 1776, the nation declares that we're a free country, and except for certain people, particularly African Americans. Of course, there were also likely people of other colors who were indentured servants for some reasons, but blacks were enslaved. And then in 1863 comes the Emancipation Proclamation. It's enacted in January, where slaves are declared no longer slaves. They cannot be held um, by any owners or owned by anyone, and they are set free. And some of us may understand the complications that came with that as well, right? We want it, beautiful, and challenging. So then this event is kept a secret in Texas until 1865. And I say a secret because it's not like nobody could get to Texas, right? For some reason, it took 2 years for this news to get to Texas. And we absolutely celebrate that people are hearing that their children shall no longer be sold off, that your partner will no longer be sold off, that you will no longer be separated, that you can no longer be abused, right? Everything that slavery talks about that we often glance over because it's ugly. It was a really ugly event. And for years, and I'm sorry, oh, here's another. So here's one of the people who helped bring Juneteenth to the forefront. Every year, we must remind successive generations that this event triggered a series of events that one by one defines the challenges and responsibilities of successive generations. That's why we need a holiday. And this was the late Texas State Representative Al Edwards, known as the father of Juneteenth. And you will see there are other people. I believe I posted a woman who also was involved, but I didn't write her name down and I can't remember her name. So the complexity comes with, of course, where I know I'm really glad that people are set free. That's obvious. When it comes to making it a federal holiday, and I know that in this country right now where people can't literally legally cannot, teachers can't teach about it, in a country where 14% of us are Black and directly impacted, should we have, if our ancestors were here, which were many of us, and knowing that racists will be able to get this day off with pay, it's challenging. Giving us the holiday without requiring some kind of information, some kind of share, is painful. People have talked to me about reparations around this idea that it's a federal holiday for those who have work. And we know that African Americans are the largest, or one of the largest, if not the largest, unemployed population in this country. So, what does that say? What does that say to people that are already underpaid, right? And barely paying their bills, and then they get the holiday. So, really grateful for the really grateful for the recognition, and it's complex. And so some of our work in mindfulness, some of our work and practices is to learn to be with the complexities, is to be able to see wisely through what's being done or what's happening, what our experience is. Um, so yes, honor, celebrate, and understand the complexity. Right. I'm not going to get into the 13th Amendment, but I appreciate that. Um, right. There's so much we could say just on Juneteenth. And that's part of the complexity is that Black people were enslaved in different ways and continue to be through through the prison industrial complex. Blacks were constantly being jailed and put to work, continues to happen today. Um, and there was something else I wanted to mention in regards to what you just said, but yeah, yeah, extremely. It's really hard, and it will take our raising consciousness within ourselves and each other, because I have been talking to Black people who, like me on the East Coast, didn't even know about Juneteenth until we got here, until we got to the West Coast, because it wasn't our experience. Like, we weren't taught it in school. So again, like, it's, how can all of us take responsibilities for that? And in the words of Hope, I have discovered in life that there are ways of getting almost anywhere you want to go. For me and many of us, that's freedom, equity, and justice. If you really want to go, says Langston Hughes. So it's about living into the intention, actually doing something, saying something. Always, nobody's asking you to put yourself in harm's way, and there are many opportunities when we can share and talk and uh, and help educate our population. In this, Laverne Cox says, each and every one of us has the capacity to be an oppressor. I want to encourage each and every one of us to interrogate how we might be an oppressor and how we might be able to become liberators for ourselves and each other. And it was, 2 years ago at this point, right? Because we were all inside, when I sat in the room for Alphabet Sangha and asked people how many people went to Pride, and everybody raised their hands, like people really enjoyed Pride. And then I asked people to look around the room and look for the representation. And so we as LGBTQ people have our own work to do when it comes to racism. How are we being inclusive? Who are we leaving out? The work of what we were experiencing a lot at the East Bay Meditation Center was just a barrage of microaggressions, right? Everybody's got great intentions, but the lack of education meant that there was just people of color would come and then they would go, and people of color would come and then they would go. And we just never had not, I don't say never, but often it was just not a safe space to be. And so as we consider that we'll be coming back likely by the end of the year, how can we do so in a way that's inclusive of all of us? The National Black Justice Coalition says Black LGBTQ plus SGL, same gender loving, people in the United States hold multiple marginalized identities. Not only are we more likely to experience discrimination, rejection, stigma, bigotry, and violence, but these become cumulative, compounded sources of toxic stress, which increase susceptibility to illness and early death. Although LGBT plus SGL people, including youth, face a higher level of mental health needs compared to non-Black, we are significantly less likely to have access to culturally competent professional care. And I'll stop there because I think, like, a lot of us know this, like we're aware of this. So how do we even, um, when we're being inclusive, just remember when we're celebrating that there are people who, not including the, of course there are people in the suburbs and people in places that are inaccessible to cities, and like they don't get to connect, but also consider the people in the place, in the space, who can connect, who may feel harmed, including the people who choose not to come into our spaces because they feel harmed. And in closing, just about this topic, I think I want to say two things. One, about the African American community, and that is, if cruelties of slavery could not stop us, the opposition we face now will surely fail, because the goal of America is freedom. Abused and scorned though we may be, our destiny is tied up with America's destiny. And I say that for African American people. And I think Coretta Scott King might have also offered that as well for the LGBTQ SGLP community. Oh, and all the A's. How do we include all of us? How can we be conscious? I almost forgot because it's pride. Do you have your beads? I've got mine. So the next thing I want to say is, if you can, turn on your camera. If not, it's okay. But I'd like you to take a look at the photos and the faces and the people. Because in addition to the idea that Black people aren't supposed to be here, Native people aren't supposed to be here, Latin people aren't supposed to be here, other POC people are not supposed to be here, none of us is supposed to be here. And look at us. Look at us. We're like, the queer people are like so essential to the culture of this country in so many ways. And they can deny us if they want, but look who's here. Just taking a look. Maybe choosing a picture and just saying to yourself, I'm so glad you made it. And choosing another picture and saying, I'm so glad you made it. And yeah, one more. I think it was earlier today, not that I'm into sports, I'm not into sports, but an NFL player came out, and we know that's a tough crowd. And he gave his money to, he offered a couple $1 million, I guess, to the Trevor Project to help us stay here, right? We're the ones who are making the space for the next group of people. For all those 10-year-olds and 3-year-olds and 5-year-olds and 12-year-olds who are coming out, they're coming out like, they're like, it's like springtime every day. And so you being out and being present, no matter how big and how small and what you did, you made it possible. You make it possible every time you show up for one more person to just declare who they are and stand in it. So now take a look at yourself and give yourself a little love and gratitude. During this period of time, we honor all of our ancestors and transcestors, just as we can honor all of those who are present. And that's important. That's what pride is, saying we are here. So I'm going to be quiet for a moment because I do want to, again, save time for a little song. But more importantly, see if there's anything that you want to say. But I think the last thing, all right, there's always a last thing I'm going to say. But I do want to say thank you. Thank you for living your life. I know it wasn't hard. I know it wasn't easy for all of us. I know that's not easy. And I really, really cherish it. Every one of you, the way you show up. So important. So thank you. And now I'll really be quiet for a couple minutes.